100 Kingdom Millionaires is 100. It's 100 million. That's $100 million that is in the hands of kingdom-minded individuals, kingdom-minded families. That could be that. Well, first off, if they're kingdom-minded, they're tithing. They might be giving their first fruits gift offering. They might be, just seeking to give wherever they can. Like they already might be giving in their business, both in how they treat their employees, how they treat people, their customers. They might be going above and beyond. That's a lot of value that's now sitting and doing kingdom work, and that's the part that gets me excited. And I'm excited for the ramp up to it, and I'm also excited to start partnering with those people so that they hit their goals.
The church deserves to make good content just as much as every believer should learn to read and write. We're moving into a world where it is almost abnormal not to be speaking publicly online. And so it's wrong for us not to advance and grow with that. So why don't we go there? It's really hard to go there, and it's not fair for me to be as frustrated as I was. So I want to get on the bike with believers and churches to just ride, because I have no clue how to get there. But I know that the only way to do that is to make as many small punches as possible, as consistently as possible, because every YouTuber I talk to only does that, and they're having way more impact than every church I've worked with. So hopefully we can figure that out. Who I have on is somebody I've recorded about 5 podcasts that haven't been posted, 3 of which were pretty good. My mentor and a spiritual friend and somebody that was at my wedding, Arel Avellino. His background is in business, but we met through entrepreneurship, and he was in film. Then he had a heart for the Lord, not necessarily in that order. And he's wanted to mesh a lot of those things together. And we recently went on a little bit of a content creation journey that had its ups and its downs, but he was actually the person I worked on, the first person I worked with to get a 1 million view video. And that was the path for me to go from film into content creation. So he has had a handful of business ventures, but now from my conversations with him, he is committing personally to building his business around content creation. We've tried this a handful of times, but I think this is the first time it's been the number one priority that everything else should be built on top of. And I think that's exciting because that's sort of where I'm going. Not everybody I talk to, I want them to do this, but I think for the people who do want to do this, it can be something really, really cool. And it's sort of halfway in between, if I'm not mistaken, Arel, you wanting to basically do everything content, but also you're making content to support a business.
No, that's on point. There's a personal desire for it because I have a personal mission that sits behind it. But then this is probably one of the first times where my personal mission and the content that I think aligns with that and my business endeavors are like really in sync. It's all, up to this point, it's definitely felt like those things were not in sync at all. But one of the questions you asked in this form, like when was another time I was consistent? That time when I was consistent, I was another time where my money making endeavors aligned with my content endeavors. So revelation that just happened right there.
Yeah, man. I we've done podcasts, we've both done it. And I think there's like this desire to have these cool conversations. But this started on a journey back in August when I was kind of sucking. And then I took a break. But Ryan Moran said, if you're struggling to do something, you probably are a selfish person. Like, maybe I should bleep that out. I don't know. There's like a whole different landmine trying to make stuff for believers. But you said if you're struggling...
You didn't hurt my ears. My ears are okay.
Yeah. You just probably are selfish. And that's really challenging and really personal, because when you look back at the times that you were successful, it usually is aligned with, I want people to experience something wonderful. I want to serve them. I want them to have the best possible experience. And for me, a lot of my podcast was, how can I milk things out of people? And it really challenged me to say, how can I actually give something to them? And I think a lot of times journaling, asking really challenging questions, working through some of that stuff would be cool. So I'm hoping the format is helpful.
I'm excited. Like I said at the top, I'm a little scared. So here we go.
So here's the plan, man. We're going to go through these questions. We're going to wrestle through some of these problems. We might come back to some of these questions so we don't get lost. And the desire here is to figure out what would be a huge win for you in content creation based on what you're struggling with. And let's push you forward. If it makes sense afterwards, we might even make some content that helps support that so I can make cool stuff for me. And then you can have free help to push you forward.
Let's get it.
Cool. So the first question I asked here is, in your own words, what is the purpose of content? I want to read this out to you. You said to help entrepreneurs build kingdom businesses. My personal mission is to build 100 kingdom millionaires. What's funny is you don't really land in the camps that a lot of the people who would think this way would. And so it's really unique. Actually, you land in some of the camps that would think the opposite of this.
Yeah. So I think that a big part of it is that I think when I was a filmmaker, it really hit home for me that the people who I was going to fund films were all people who had businesses that then gave them money that then allowed them to fund films. My goal at the time was to make films that help people see that, one, like, Christians can make good movies. Because I from even at that time, I was very like open and blatant. Like, I am a Christian. There wasn't really a time where I was like, ooh, I'm hesitant to like be really, to not be so like open and out there about it. But when I was a filmmaker, the focus was make good movies and then impact people who are on the sets of those films. But I wanted to make movies that I probably wasn't going to get permission from, a Hollywood exec or whatever. I've seen that there's a lot of things like that where if you don't have Christians who have the money to support the cause or to support the mission, then it doesn't happen. It's not going to happen. And you even see it in the Bible where you have, you have very influential people. I hate that I'm going to immediately blank on the first one that came to mind, but the tent makers in Acts. There's a bunch of people right now who are like, and they are saying the names like right now. Aquila and Priscilla, those two. So they had money from their tent business. They had all these tents. They were doing well, and it allowed them to support kingdom efforts. So we need to see that same thing happening now. Ministry doesn't just mean that you are, showing up on a Sunday with your youth minister. It doesn't always mean that. Sometimes it just simply means that you are somebody who is living kingdom values and making sure that you are doing well with the gifts that God has given you. Very similar to the craftsmen who helped build the temple. These were men who were established in their craft. In Proverbs, Solomon talks about a man who is skilled. I'm going to paraphrase it, but a man who is skilled will not sit amongst obscure men. He'll sit with kings. You need to be able to, one, instruct them. And when I was starting out in business, the mentors were few and far between. And so many of the mentors that I found, online were people who, they weren't kingdom minded. They wanted to like teach you kind of the way of the world as far as earning money. And I think there is a significant difference between, how the world looks at money, the world looks at entrepreneurship, the world looks at business, and how Christians and those who are kingdom minded need to look at business and money.
You use the word instruct. There is a verse that talks about empowering, equipping, teaching, what the purpose of the word is, and that it's useful for all of those things. When you said instruct, it made me think of that. Synonyms like inspire, synonyms like empower. So is it that they don't have the knowledge on how to do this? Is it that they don't believe that it's possible? I think those kind of questions are going to be really helpful to you along that process.
My main thinking right now around my content and like why I think it's important to get it out there, like first off, not only do I want to teach people this stuff, but then I want to partner with them when they, get into the weeds of doing it, right? So my personal mission is 100 Kingdom Millionaires. And I would love to be a part of the journey of a bunch of those people. You got guys out there who I look up to, from their business sense, guys like Hermosi who, he's trying to acquire businesses. And my very first ecom business that hit 7 figures was a business that I wasn't my original idea. Like, the product was not my original idea. Somebody had an Etsy business. They took it up to as far as they could go. And then I came in, helped them build out the rest of the business, helped them build out the operations, helped them build out the marketing, all of that. That's how we got to 7 figures. I think that there's going to be a bunch of people who, they're the 0 to 1 people who they want to get an idea off the ground, and we need those people. We need them to bring new things into the marketplace. And then there's going to be those who they're much stronger acquiring those businesses and helping take them to the 7-figure and beyond mark. And then there's going to be people who actually are like, oh, 7 figures? Well, I'm actually at the 8-figure mark where it's time to take this well beyond 7 figures. And I hope to be there at some point, but not there yet.
Because the pieces I feel like we haven't gone into, and maybe we'll go into in this podcast, is you've built a business that hit like 7 figures, and you have raised in like months $1 million for projects, and you have managed and grown large teams and seen things hit the marks, but you've also seen things that haven't gotten there or not had the legs to keep going. And I think there's something in content creation that forces us to reveal that sometimes we do things that we don't care about, and it's not a service to the people that we care about. Because we aren't actually serving them, we're leveraging to them. Also, I love that you put the scripture in here. Let's read it real quick. All right, 2 Timothy 3:16 through 17. That's cute. I should probably use the word a lot in this. All scripture is God-breathed and is useful for teaching, rebuking, correcting, and training in righteousness, so that the servants of God may be thoroughly equipped for every good work. I think there's something there, and it's probably worth looking in the book of Timothy at, like, what was he trying to say? How can I speak into believers?
It's so funny. I just did a study on Timothy. Our cigar Bible shop.
Yes, dude, I've been to that.
Cigar Bible study. Yep. We went through 2 Timothy, and man, now we're in Titus, which is like the other son of Paul. Like, Timothy was a spiritual son of Paul. Well, so is Titus. So we're getting a lot of similar stuff. But yeah, finishing that book was definitely, it was convicting, because it's basically, Paul is telling you what it looks like to be a leader, essentially, in the church. And there's a lot in there that I think is, like, when he talks about scripture, most people are thinking New Testament, whatever, but the scripture they had at the time was Old Testament. So if all scripture is God-breathed and useful for teaching, rebuking, correcting, and training in righteousness, so that the servant of God may be thoroughly equipped, he's talking about, well, the whole Bible, the whole thing, the Old Testament is good for that. And there's things that you learn in there about business, about economics, about, the way in which you should go for developing what I believe is a kingdom business and a view towards kingdom business that I think might be missing right now in our culture.
Dude, well, first, 2 things here, man. Like, I will say there are certain projects that I think are pastoral, ministry heart, and, like, to a certain extent, hold a certain weight of responsibility, right? And then there are certain projects that don't. This is maybe controversial. I would actually love if people talked about this in the comments, because I don't know, like, this is a new idea for me, is I don't think creative staffs are entirely biblical, and I don't think that they are pastors, and they're often treated like both of those things. But what is much more biblical is if you're leading an organization, that's a lot closer to being a pastor than being on staff at a church often. Not always, but often. But I think a part of it is you're really wanting to establish what it looks like for a kingdom business to be built. There's a huge responsibility in that, not to do things perfectly, but to honor the word, to look at what it looks like to wrestle, and to disagree. Because at the end of the day, there's going to be so much controversy and difference. But then I think about what I'm trying to do here. I was praying about it a lot, and I don't want this to be a spiritual development podcast. I want this to be, if you love Jesus, please get on your feet and work. Learn to write and read.
Get after it.
One of the things I think is interesting here is you talk about this 100 Kingdom Millionaires. I think something that is difficult about big goals, and you know this, you've taught me this, is what does the first 10 Kingdom Millionaires look like? And how do you put all of your heart and energy into that path? But we could come back to that.
What's the first one?
Dude, what's the first Kingdom
What's the
Millionaire?
first one? So the funny thing is, the annoying part about my story is that the way that I've actually consistently hit underneath of millionaire status, like just always just slightly shy of it. In fact, I was like actually at the beginning of this year, I was actually closer than I am right now because of like just some craziness of this year. So like one of my goals this year is take the speck out of my own eye, or the log out of my own eye. You know, that's how big it is. Take the log out of my own eye, and before I start going and taking the speck out of my brother's. I think part of that too, though, is still documenting and teaching so that people can kind of see what the journey looks like, especially from 0 to like 10,000 a month, because 0 to 10,000 a month for most people is the biggest stretch.
Yeah.
Like they can't even comprehend it. Two of the audiences I put in there are people who are at the very beginning. They aren't necessarily, they're entrepreneurs, like the spirit is in them, but they are not yet, they don't yet own a business, and they have not yet experienced what it looks like from 0 to 10.
I think establishing the first one, as well as that early end of the journey, is a good call, because so many of the people that you're talking to that do need to go on this journey need to be inspired towards that. And then at the end of the day, it's a little bit easier to make viral because it does go to a beginning of the audience and you can continue with them. I don't think that you're going to help a lot of those people. So I feel like one of the parts that from knowing you, dude, you need to prepare for is that you are going to see a lot of people fail and then need to accept that they will fail and watch that and soak it up, and not go fix that for them. Like that's going to be so much of the people, all of your comments. Oh, tried this, I failed. And you're going to want to take on that responsibility. But here's the heart. It is not that you will not care about those people or be okay with them failing. It is that you will commit to the people that God has had you to commit to, which is the people that are going to commit to the $100 million business. Now that's an exaggerated, whatever the numbers are term, but 100 Kingdom Millionaires. So feel like that's going to be hard.
100 Kingdom Millionaires is 100. It's 100 million. That's $100 million that is in the hands of kingdom-minded individuals, kingdom-minded families. That could be first off, if they're kingdom-minded, they're tithing. They might be given their first fruits gift offering. They might be just seeking to give wherever they can. Like they already might be giving in their business, both in how they treat their employees, how they treat people, their customers. They might be going above and beyond. That's a lot of value that's now sitting and doing kingdom work, and that's the part that gets me excited. And I'm excited for the ramp up to it, and I'm also excited to start partnering with those people so that they hit their goals. But
what are you most scared about that happening or not happening? You know, what's like scares you? What causes you stress around that?
I think what causes me stress is that this has been a vision that I've had since midway. So when our first year in doing 7 figures in my ecom brand, shortly after that, I had glimpses of this vision, and I think there's been a lot of time that has passed since when that happened, and so when the original vision happened, and now, and I feel the sense of I'm already behind. Like I feel a sense of I should have done that. I should have just acted. Instead, I kind of pulled a Jonah and was like, I'm not ready yet. And, jumped into the boat going the wrong direction.
You have talked about this before. You have prayed about this. We've talked about this since day one, dude. I was in a basement, or I was living with a bunch of dummies. And man, this was the same heart. Like you cared about this then, you coached me, you let me pay you to coach me, and then you stopped it because you wanted me to grow. And it has been like 4 or 5 years of that, and this hasn't started. This matters to you. I know this is the right path for you because this is all that's mattered to you. What has been the biggest roadblock for you? Obviously in the past, but more importantly right now, but it's important to know both. What's been the biggest roadblock for you in content creation?
I think the biggest roadblock is probably setting aside the time. So in the past, I have consistently prioritized, oh, well, we need to fix, this operational need in the business. We need to fix our ads. We need to insert in blank the thing. And I keep saying that it's because I don't want to be spread too thin and have too many things going in too many different directions. But it's just an excuse really at this point, because the time it takes for me to, this past week, this week is a good example. And I think this helped affirm that that's been thoroughly an excuse. It took me 2 hours, just sitting down, totally complete from scratch, blank piece of paper, 3 different reels, like shorts, for Instagram, and they were value packed. To actually record those takes me about 20 minutes each. If I'm just not feeling it, it's usually between 15 and 20. So basically another hour. So 3 hours total to do 3 reels. That right now my goal is just 3 reels in the week, with 2 other additional pieces of content that kind of are simple low hanging fruit ones, using B-roll, or I could do reactions, but stuff that I don't have to plan, right? So those value packed ones, I get them out, and that's the only amount of time it takes. 3 hours per week to get out that content. That's huge. That's so easy. That's so easy to do. And I know that that's only from this first week when I'm just getting started. I'm just getting the rhythm. If I start to develop more systems around it, then I'm going to get better. That time's going to go down, but the value of my content is probably still going to go up. So that's where my brain is at right now, is that I'm pushing off that excuse. I'm pushing out that, affirming that it is an excuse.
Remind me what the excuse was?
Just me saying, the excuse is that it's going to take too much time, and that there's other things that are more important to use that time on. And at this point, there's really nothing more important than me just doing the content to get in front of people, to start the conversations, because I'm then also using I'm using the content I'm making right now to inform the materials I'm going to use for any training materials we put together, any SOPs that we put together for business builders who are trying to learn what we've done. So
what's influenced the desire to combine your internal work needs with content creation? Because I hear you saying you're building SOPs and you're doing this for the internal company. What started that? What has gone well with that? And what's made that kind of hard to accomplish? Because I know we've tried to do that at different capacities multiple times. So what brought that idea along, and what has maybe gone not so well in that?
There's a heart thing that kind of drove me. But then also there was kind of a practical need where we were getting inventors who wanted us to do 3D visualization for their product. And they were still at an early enough stage that I would say they weren't really ready for our service. Anytime somebody hears about our service and we tell them a price and they kind of balk a little bit at the price, I kind of know at that point, all right, you are afraid of being able to commit at this level. You're afraid you're not going to be able to make any sales. You probably don't have a roadmap. So usually when I get to that point in the call, very quickly it becomes a coaching call where I'm just talking them through, okay, well, tell me about your business. Tell me about what it is that you're focused on right now. What's the plan to take this to market? And the answers I get tell me that they really don't have a clue. So one of the things I realized is that if I'm spending a lot of money to get these guys to show up on a phone call with me, between the ad spend that we're doing, the follow-up that we're doing, we're getting, for every 100 people, we're getting about 20 to actually show up on a call. A bunch of them can say they're going to show up, but we're getting about 20 to show up on a call. And of those 20, maybe only 10% actually are qualified for our service. So our goal is, one of the things I realized is that we could probably offer these guys who are kind of a little bit too early for our product, a different product. We could probably offer them a course, training, things for them to get up and running with their business so they have a clear roadmap from start to finish. This is what you're going to do with your product. This is how you're going to take it to market. This is, rather than getting focused and so wound up on I'm an inventor, I've made this brand new thing, and now this is all I'm going to make. Like, I'm only going to make products like this. No, instead, we're going to shift that inventor brain and say, you are not just an inventor. You've made something that's serving an audience. So let's identify what that audience is, and then let's take it to that audience and get you start a Kickstarter, all these different things that they can do to actually launch.
So what I'm hearing you say is you're taking your existing needs and you're applying content creation as a tool to support that. And then you're trying to figure out how to make it as entertaining as possible for the public marketplace so that it provides as much value to them personally, but also it can be used in multiple ways. Now, what's interesting is that we tried to do that for multiple different projects, and it's gone poorly and it's gone well in different capacities. I think back to Passage, I think forward to some of the things on the in-between. And then one of the things is, I remember with Passage, we stopped making content because it stopped being the main priority. A sales company, a product company, a development company, is content not being the most important part of the process, right? Then it becomes the easiest thing to cut out. And we kind of live in a space where that is the case. Even if we talk about marketing, it's the first thing that gets cut because, well, we have to do fulfillment so we can cut marketing. But we're kind of moving into a world where if you are not building trust consistently, your confidence is slowly and slowly lowering. So your cost for confidence is slowly and slowly growing. And so thinking about things long-term is one part of it, but then also thinking about how do you make it easy to do what you're saying, which is be really, really valuable. Now, I'm wondering, are you including in your time spending 2 hours to write content? Are you including research, analytics, what's working, what's trending in that hour, or is that more time? Or are you spending in those 2 hours writing, looking up those things, finding out what ideas, looking for those things?
Yep.
So in 2 hours...
2 hours is all of that.
Okay, so in 2 hours, you're able to, I might have caught you on the wrong end of this, but we'll see. Genuinely, if you're able to actually do the research and have that structure built out, that's huge. Because you can write something, and if you feel like it's value-packed, that's huge. But if it's actually value-packed is another question. And we might review some of your content to see if that's the case. Yeah.
Ooh. So here's what I'm finding. Is that a bunch of people have said that it might be too long. It's covering two things. There's 2 key points in it, and I probably need to bring it down to 1 key point. I spent that 2 hours. That just seems to be a consistent thing. That 2 hours turned into a piece that I thought was actually one piece, and then our Abby, our content person, took it and broke it up into 3 pieces because she's like, it's too long. She literally put it through a content reader that was going to say basically how much time it takes to read this, and she set it to fast. Let's say you're reading this as fast as possible, or you're going through this as fast as possible. It's going to take 5 minutes to get through all that content, and the piece that everybody said was long was 2 minutes. So basically I probably had too many things in there, and because she was able to break it so easily into 3 pieces, I think she even just put it into ChatGPT and said, break this into 3 pieces, and it's 3 solid pieces of content.
Now, a couple things here. One of them is in the writing process. I think you're a brilliant person, but whenever you start to come into content creation or come back into it because it's changed so much, it's very revealing how green we are Even now, like, dude, I'm doing this. I've done a bunch of podcasts. I actually love coaching, but I'm doing this on camera right now and I'm ridiculously anxious. Like, I'm green. And so right now, my thing is like, how do I get less green? And one of the posts I shared, I actually think is amazing. It was Alex Ramosi, and he was talking about confidence and expertise. And he said, the only way to feel more confident is to become less excited about it. So like, do it till it's boring, and then you'll have the confidence to do it really well. And so all you can do to actually get better at something is reduce the excitement through almost frustration and boredom, which is really fascinating. So in that, one of the things I totally could see happening, because I would tease about like, oh, review it and is it good content? It's actually pretty good. It's actually pretty dense, solid, good storytelling. But a part of that is how much energy and time is that going to suck out of you to be able to do this sustainably? You, out of most people I know, are going to probably be able to make it work. But if you didn't have that skill, the advice I would give you is reduce the quality, increase the quantity, learn as many lessons as quickly, and soak up the shame that you're going to feel for that. If that's the case for somebody that doesn't have your frequency bone, what would happen if you reduced the quality for you and did 100 pieces of content? Not actually recommending you do this, but like, what would the experience be of writing 50 scripts, trying out 50 ideas? Instead of doing 3 pieces of content a week and 2 pieces of easy content a week, I say do 30 pieces of content a week and 20 pieces of easy content a week. When I like, that's exaggerative, but what emotion does that elicit in you?
That's all I'm going to be doing is just content.
And does that feel like possible with your current life?
I do the math. Yes, and I think the big part of it is that I think that. So like, for example, Hermosi, right, putting out, I think it's like 70 pieces of content, or I forget how many pieces of content it is, right? The amount of content he puts out, a big part of it is he is recording these key blocks, and then he's going and having his team just edit the crap out of it. Part of his content is stuff that, like, so long as he just keeps tweeting, they have content for days. And then the other part of his content is, long form broken into short form. And then every now and then he does content that's specifically designed for short form. For me right now, I'm specifically focused on producing like short form content. And then what I think the next generation of this might be, you can tell me what you think about this. What the next generation of this might be is starting to get into the long form and trying to maintain the quality of my short form.
Long form's the future. Like, you have to learn how to make somebody listen to you for 7 hours before they're interested in trusting you. And short form leads into that, especially when we talk about sustainability. If you can make the content pay for itself, you can have it, etc. Like, you never have to cut it. Like, if your YouTube videos are making money, then you never have to cut that department because it's paying for itself. So there's sides of it that are like that. That's harder to do with TikTok. That's harder to do with Instagram. You might get Instagram to be a funnel for you to make money in your main business, but it's harder for it to be the thing that sustains itself. As well as, if you're trying to serve people, don't think about, should I do short form? Should I do long form? Think about that person and serve them. I'm going to do a lot of short form clips, but the people I want to serve is you. So I'm going to make long form content about me going into this and feeling ridiculous amounts of shame for trying to challenge you and disagree with you because I have a tendency to be a people pleaser. So like, that is partly like, that heart is influencing that, rather than what is the trendy capitable opportunity. You can capitalize, you should capitalize, but it shouldn't be the first thing that you do, because then you'll come up with bad ideas. One of the things I wanted to ask you is, we talked about doing 30. Let's pretend and suspend disbelief that it's possible to do 30 and 20. Let's just pretend. And you're not going to land there. I want to go further for the sake of it, while only doubling the amount of time that you're putting in. You're not doing this all day. Let's pretend that you're putting 4 hours into writing and 2 hours into shooting. Let's just pretend. And so that's just a whole day for content. Like, let's just pretend you put a 10-hour day into it. And even to just give you a little bit of wiggle room, let's give you 10 hours. Every Tuesday, and more likely the times that you're most creative, you are just letting yourself flow into content. And if that's the case, and if that's possible, how the heck is that possible? That question is so much more valuable then here's the advice. I actually don't know how you're going to do that, but trying to answer that question, trying to answer the question of, and maybe it's important for me to even ask if you care about this, how can I get 30 reps in the next week so that I learn 30 lessons? And then even see if I can learn 30 lessons to then reduce it back. And there's a balance between the two. I wouldn't give this advice to most people, but I know how committed you are to content creation. So I actually do think you should push harder than you currently are, because even if you do burn yourself out, you are going to hear from me and your wife and the people in your life, get back on the horse, stop whining. You know, like you're going to do it. So what could you do to push yourself? Now, here's the juxtaposition of that. That doesn't mean make crappy content. But I know that at the bottom of this list, what you said is quality is more important. And that's assuming that you have the experience that Alex Hormozi does. And you can't sit down and do a podcast and get everything that Alex Hormozi has because he's put the reps in that you haven't. And that's totally okay. So what can you do to put the reps in that he has and soak up the feeling of, man, 8 out of 20 of those sucked, but 12 of those were amazing. That's still better. Like, that's still better. And that slowly increases. Now, when I say that, what kind of like bucks up as that's bad advice? I don't like that. Where does your mind go when I say that conceptually? Not practically, but conceptually.
Well, so I'm thinking about how would I make that much content, right? Or how would I, so if, let's say that,
does the idea of making more content to grow feel good, even not on the practical side, but like?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
It does. It feels good. So making more content to grow feels good because it feeds actually a part of me that's like obsessive.
Yeah.
And
yes.
right now, like we didn't post something today, and I know that's because we're probably saving the piece that I know that's in the back channel for Monday. And there's some part of me that's like, but I want to see how it did, you know? I just want it to go out today, you know? I want to see, like, will people engage with that? Like, is that going to do better than the last piece? Like, I want to keep seeing how the scoreboard is stacking up, and also, you know, how my messages that I'm putting together are stacking up. Because as I'm writing stuff, like, the amount of writing that I'm doing is piling up, but because stuff hasn't gone out yet, like, there's like a handful of things that have gone out at this point. That's all I have to go off of. The engagement on that is all I have to go off of as far as like feedback as to, you know, am I doing well or am I not doing well? So doing more like makes me feel this feeling of, well, that's more times that I can get feedback. So that part feels good. So when I think about what does it look like to, so if I were to double it and not necessarily double my time, so 7.5 hours produces 10 pieces of content, something like that. Where would I get that? Where would I store that 7.5 hours? Where would I store maybe that 8 hours? I'd probably store it in reserving specific time for content and actually being religious about reserving that time. And that's the part where my brain probably spends the most time problem solving. Like, well, is it better to do it all in one day? Is it better to, spread it across a couple days and then let the ideas build up in between? And my gut reaction is that I probably have 4 good hours at a time to like produce stuff. So probably split it between 2 days. That's my gut reaction.
You don't have to stop doing what you're currently doing, but you could add on top of it, and you can do both at the same time. I know you have the capacity to do that. The reason I bring this idea up, and the reason I want to like don't even think about the strategy. This is like kind of the mindset, because I struggle with this. And again, like let's wrestle with maybe the thing that's going to stop this from happening, which is quality. Like there are 2 lines. There's one that goes up, and then there's one that goes forward. And when the quality line goes up instead of the consistently line goes forward, it becomes harder to push it forward, so it becomes harder to keep going. But if you just keep going forward faster, you'll slowly, gradually have the quality line go up. Mind you, you can still do what you're currently doing because, first of all, it's really good. Like, I loved the past 2 pieces of content more than anything I've seen you make, and I think it causes you to practice playing a new song. And I actually love the idea of the piano. You are learning to play a complicated piece, and that's important, whether that's in short form or long form. But as well as playing a complicated piece, you're going to learn scales and cadences, and you're going to play chords, and you're going to play worship songs, and you're going to try out ideas. You're not going to do one or the other if you want to be an amazing pianist, because then you'll learn to be a classical pianist, or you'll learn to be a worship pianist. But if you want to be an amazing musician, you're going to do both. So how do we do both? And the piece of advice that was just given to me that hurt so much was I asked Jimmy. Jimmy's the guy who pays me right now. I did his YouTube channel, and he's killing it. And his content, for better or worse, I'm going to use the word, is messy. It's just messy. It's not professional. It's not clean. And that man's making much more money than I am. He has 500,000 subscribers. We regularly get 100,000 views per video. Every once in a while, 1 million. And it blows me away. And then every once in a while, in his 1 hour sloppy phone vlogs, fixing planes, he says, hey man, I want to pray for you. And then every comment is, oh my gosh, you know? And his quality is going to be so much less than everything you produce, Arel, and he is building more for the kingdom than you currently are. And it drives me nuts. It drives me nuts. And so I don't say that to be rude or abrasive. I hope to say that to build the case of how can we build towards that? So this is the advice he gave me. I pitched this format. It's in my room. I'm going to have fun. It's going to be easy, blah, 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 blah. It's going to be for churches and it's going to be coaching. And he was like, and I asked him, what are your thoughts on the format? And what are your thoughts on what I should do next? And he said to me, and I don't think this was rude. I think this was loving to my personality. I don't care about anything you just said. That was his exact words. And I was like, whoa.
Love that for you.
You're right.
Yeah.
Honestly, you know, dude.
That's great.
And he said, I don't care about anything you just said. Whatever you can do to make your first 20 videos as fast as you possibly can, you need to do it quickly and you need to do it messy. Because if you make it good, it's going to be hard. And if you make it clean, and if you take a long time, you're not going to learn anything because you won't have the quick gaps between lessons to be able to connect the pieces. You'll have to look back. You'll have to read the journal. You'll have to work hard. So when you're building out this strategy, that's totally fine. We're going to do that work. But before you even start building the strategy, think about how quickly you can run there. And then later on, like you can build this strategy out tomorrow. You can change it. You can shift it. You need to just sprint as quickly as you can to those first 20 and then decide if you want to keep going in that direction.
I'm currently doing it. Like I'm currently enacting the strategy right now. All right. But I'm enacting the version that's like my tuned down version where I'm doing 3 reels. And then the 2 very, very simple reels.
Like what if we made 20 reels before Christmas or like before the end of next week? Because you might be like ahead.
It takes me 20 minutes to do the recording process. And right now, of the things that I have written, I have... So typically the way I come up with ideas is I am... so my editor, and she's more than an editor, so it's hard to just call her that. Social media guru. She's like a producer. Yeah, 1,000%. Yeah, she's queen. She basically, I will literally just shoot her messages all throughout the day. Anytime I see a piece of content, it's like straight into her inbox. And that becomes like our idea folder. And then I'm then putting it into ClickUp to be able to like riff off of it. And the first thing I'm looking for is, am I hearing in this like a question that I think people are asking, or is there just a very tantalizing hook, right? So like one of the first pieces of content I put out there was I made a 7-figure business with a stranger on the internet.
Yes.
And then it went into explaining how that happened.
Yeah.
It's a great hook. I love that hook. But then my second video didn't do as good, and I think it's because of the hook.
Yeah, dude.
Because the hook for that one was, you want to make a business, but you don't know what kind of a business you want to make.
Yes.
It's like super dumb. Like it's basically like, hey, you want to know how to make a business? So it's shouting out the person, but you don't know what kind of business you want to make. I mean, I don't know that that's like tantalizing. Maybe to a certain group of people that's tantalizing, but it's definitely not to the level of, I started a 7-figure business with a stranger on the internet. That is fun.
Yeah, tantalizing is like the perfect word, because we talk about like shock and awe or whatever, but like tantalizing, it's like it just like it pricks at you and it makes you uncomfortable, but it makes you want more.
Yeah.
So good. One of the things, and I actually think I could commit to this and this would be fun, is how could we make 30 pieces of content in the next week that you felt like taught you 30 lessons? And if I say that, that probably sounds a tiny bit stressful. Like you've got Christmas coming up, you've got stuff going on, just a little, not entirely. I know you know it's possible, even if you got to pretend.
I think recording the content sounds stressful, like because it's the part from going from script, like going from idea. Because here's the thing, dude, I got that whole course. I have an entire course right now that's laid out, literally in there. I could talk about finding a manufacturer. I could talk about partnering with Etsy businesses. Like the list goes on, like the types of things that I can talk about. I have no end of ideas. That's why it doesn't take me much time, because literally all I'm doing, I open up the course document that I have where I have literally everything written out, and I pick a thing and I say, okay, cool, I'm going to write a little bit on that. It literally only takes me 2 hours to write something that usually has to get broken up.
What if we started to build out strategies for you to feel less more confident to be able to just do more? Mind you, I think the good feedback and the pushback you're going to get from the amazing people in your life like Abby is, well, what if you just start making garbage? But the issue is, and not the issue, is that you have amazing creative people in your corner that can help stop that from happening. And right now, you need to just get your butt into gear and start pushing.
You were saying that hey Arel, what if you start making garbage? Like that was the fear, like borderline, like the fear that exists in my head is, what if I'm already making garbage?
Well, here's
hot garbage.
Well, here's the good news. I think the stuff you're making is actually really valuable. I sent it to a couple buddies and they were like, that's sick. My wife and I, Ellie and I were going on a walk and we watched it and he was like, that's the coolest thing I've seen Arel make. So be encouraged to know that you are serving your audience and you care about them, so you're helping them. And the more that you care about them, the more that you're actually an expert on the field, the easier it'll be. So what if we go into this presupposition that we are going to figure out by the end of this call how you're going to make 30 pieces of content before the end of the year, which means we got a week to do it so that you're not screwing the people.
The transforming the video idea into something concise. My hardest thing is being concise. My hardest, you know this. That's literally, so the easiest type of content for me to do is this, where it's long form. Long form is easy for me only in that it gives me the false illusion that it's okay for me to not be brief, right? Like I feel the room to just go on.
So here's the good news, dude. You're gonna get better at that, and I think this is part of it. I wish I had the courage to tell you certain things earlier on. One of those is a lot of times you have amazing points and they get lost, and the length. And I've just never said it to you. You know that this is not something I needed to hide from you.
And just the map of all the things I say.
But yes, you're not gonna get good at that until you watch yourself on camera 20 more times. You will not notice the things that you need to improve and improve them each time. A part of that is you should probably watch right after each recording to an extent, but also you just need to keep doing it so that you can keep finding the little idioms. So as you're doing this, you're gonna notice the things that you hate about how you communicate, and you're gonna start putting into you the ways to keep it concise, but the only way to get there is to put the reps in. And looking at yourself in the mirror about how you're pushing up your body whenever you pull up the bar. But unless you got the mirror and the camera watching you, how can you know what you're doing with your body wrong? As well as...
So actually that's real. That's real.
So that might be a hook at some point. So I want to get into the hook ideas. I want to explore that. You have a niche here. We're going to record separately this part because I think it's important. At your niche, you have a couple of different people. The short version of this is you mentioned to me, I commented on one of your videos. You are going to regret saying that.
Oh, here we go.
And you sent the eyes.
Now it all comes out.
It really comes out. Now, what you said was, if you are going to serve someone, and I love that you use the word serve, you should really like that person because you're going to have to spend a lot of time with them. And I loved that note because you've listed 3 different people here, which is fine. It's fine to have a broad niche, but I actually think you should choose one person and alienate the rest. Here's a prime example of this that I'm wrestling with. I have wanted to influence content creators. I want to influence YouTubers. I want to influence the entrepreneurs, the thought leaders. That's something I've heard you say a lot. And it's something that I've wrestled with. And I've not wanted to serve believers because of all of my own presuppositions and church hurt and the Lord needing to sanctify me. But at the end of the day, it was scary to niche down, even though I love telling people to niche down, because I didn't want to alienate my friends at the Thunderdome who are not believers. I didn't want to alienate all of my YouTuber friends that are super smart because they're not believers. But in reality, I wasn't serving the person I cared about because I wasn't willing to alienate the people that I didn't want to serve, but that I wanted to learn from. That distinction was so helpful. I literally, and you're going to help me with this too, came up with 20 video ideas, and I was like, I can shoot all of those before the end of the year. And these are long form videos. Like, I was like, I could shoot 20 long form entertaining videos that would get clicks just because I started to think about who that was. That person is the church. So that person is church videographers and pastors who specifically, and this was the key part, feel stressed about making content and want to make it easier. So I immediately thought, what's the most searched for video? And it was a live stream setup video. And I knew that. And I was like, dude, I have the best budget live stream setup ever. And so I'm going to make a video about that. And I've done it for 2 different churches. And it's way better than every video on the market. And I could do that in my sleep. Like, I talked about this on Clubhouse, I've talked about it at church events, and it's actually really good, and I've set the whole thing up before, and I can go to that church. And then I came up with 20 more of those, and all of them had searchable results because I started to say, what would make church creatives less stressed about making content frequently? One of those videos is use your LED wall for podcasts. Use your stage for podcast. Why aren't you using your stage for, well, the audio. Use your stage for podcasts. And then I just kept going through a bunch of ideas that I knew would get clicked on because I thought, who is that person that I want to serve? There are hacks that I'm trying to use for me that I need help on. You asked me, what are the differences between these people? There is actually vast differences, and I think you're missing a part of one niche that is important to you. And then that kind of came down to a question down here that I think will be fun to explore. And I do think you're trying to cast a wide net, and you're scared of alienating some people. Here's why. We should be united as the body. Do you agree?
See.
Yeah. Do you think that it is important that whether you are a runner or are a gamer or are a mom who likes to do crafts, we should all be able to pray and worship together?
Yes.
Do you think that you have the same ability to serve somebody who has been abused by their father, who's a mom, and can't trust her husband, the same way that you're able to serve somebody who is building crafts and has been told they're insecure and ugly, and serve a dad who is able to run and loves to exercise and likes goofy, fun crafts and likes to do things that are outdoors? Do you think you're able to serve all 3 of those people equally, perfectly, exactly the same with your personal abilities and experiences? I want to know your honest feelings, not...
Well, yeah. So here's the thing.
Perfectly. All exactly the same perfectly.
The core need of all of the people that I've listed are that they want to learn this skill.
This is where it gets
and
fun.
Their main need is that they don't have the skill, and their status in life is about the same. So like the only one that's different really is the mom.
Yep.
If I were to take anybody out, it would be the mom.
I'm exaggerating Etsy Ethan, if you noticed.
You really are. Poor Etsy Ethan.
I know, man.
I didn't realize he was abused. So the reason Etsy Ethan is in there is because I've served Etsy Ethan before.
Yes.
Etsy Ethan has commented on my content. The reason why I have, Dan, Dan the dad, is because I feel like Dan the dad is who is constantly talking to me about his ideas, and he wants to get his stuff off the ground, and he's married to Mommy Michaela.
100%.
9 times out of 10, he's married to Mommy Michaela.
But question for you, from the 3 I made up, I just used the names, but from the 3 I made up personally, and even remove business and content, you as a believer being able to serve one of them, which of the 3 do you believe you're able to serve best?
The content that serves both those guys is the same stuff. Now, there's words that attract the same person. There's words that attract one more than the other. And when I run out of ideas for one, I'm going to switch over to the other and vice versa and go back and forth. The only one who's more different is the mom, but the mom might be the person who then drives Dan the dad to show up. So I'm thinking about her because I can literally see like there's so like my business partner was a woman, and a lot of her motivation was she wanted to drive. She wanted to bring value into their household and bring value to the guy who he was the Dan the dad, but he wasn't actually a dad yet. He was a supporter and had like taken care of her, and she wanted to bring that back.
Because you still didn't answer the question. You're explaining something outside
I
the
feel
question.
like I have.
No.
I feel like I have, and you're not satisfied with the fact that
because
I actually do believe I can serve all three of those people, and that they're served better by me serving all three.
You might be right, but do you think at this exact moment, right now, and again, I'm saying perfectly. I'm saying like you are Jesus level. Like this is the best version of Arel. Perfect. Every moment, always, never off, never feeling energy gone. I was trying to figure out how to serve YouTubers, entrepreneurs, creatives, some churches, all of these. And I think that there's this bigger, grander gospel purpose. But at the end of the day, I think that people I'm called to serve as churches, and I'm not going to alienate Christian entrepreneurs, and I'm not going to alienate Christian organizations. But I actually think the people that I'm called to serve the best, Christian entrepreneurs or churches. And it's really frustrating because it's forcing me to say, I'm not going to make that because this person doesn't need that for right now because I need to get my first 20 reps in. So what's the easiest way for me to get my first 20 reps in? Now, I'm giving some of the answers away. I want to ask you, do you personally believe, and it is okay if you do, because you said you do, and that's sort of where that response is, that you can perfectly serve all of those three people in front of you right now perfectly, exactly the same quality, like with the same video?
I struggle with the word perfect.
So perfectly is actually, I think, the important word. How can we get closer to perfect? Because you can't get to perfect. You know that. I know that. How can we get closer to perfect? And here's a better word, easily. Easily. Which one of these can you most easily serve?
If my content isn't hitting, like it's easy right now. Like the concept of me serving Christian entrepreneurs, particularly in the journey of e-commerce, because that's the one I know. I'm not going to speak on, let's say, I'm not going to speak on service businesses. I'm really good at it. I'm like currently in one right now, but e-commerce is easy. And so rather than going broad and say, hey, everybody who wants to do e-commerce, man, I'm the guy. No, instead, I'm going to say, no, Christians, especially for me personally, my biggest heart is for Christian men. Because I'm in your shoes. Yeah, I'm in your shoes. I get the challenge of wanting to be with your kids, wanting to be with your wife, wanting to be a man of God, wanting to have all of that have some sort of cohesion together. I get the feeling of all of that. So I'm going to serve Christian men who want to pursue business, but the path I will show them is e-commerce. If you had told me to put them in order of importance, I would have put the dad, the Etsy, and then the mom. So I'm always going to prioritize it in that order.
The desire to cut two out is to make you feel something. I want you to feel what it would feel like to never serve so here's probably the easier step.
I'm not
first.
Pentecostal.
No.
I'm not Pentecostal. I can't.
You are a feeling person. You know it.
I am very Presbyterian. I really don't like it when someone's trying to make me feel your something. Feelings. Especially from on stage and you're playing synth. If you're playing synth and you're trying to make me feel something, oh my gosh.
Well, we gotta put it on or something. Who would you let go of in this moment? Who would you give up?
There you go. Now you're hitting me. No.
So on a real note, the desire is to make you feel that. I think the easier step first is which one is most important to you.
Yeah. And I would say it's the dad. Then it's the Etsy Ethan. Then it's the mom.
Why did you write mom's second? Like, why was that the second thing that you wrote down and came to your mind?
Right, because I think that oftentimes she's married to the dad.
Like you think about her a lot more?
I thought about her next.
Yeah.
I thought about her next because I was literally thinking about their household. So mom and dad trying to figure out life. I'm going to be speaking to the guy, but I think it's not going to be uncommon for there to be a woman back there basically being like, yo, we should do this. Because I've seen a lot of amazing women who, like, they were the driver and then the guy was the structure and the operator and all that. The wife was the, like, she has the idea, she has the inspiration, like she's kind of like pointing the direction, and the guy came in as the operator. I've seen that really work well, and I would love to talk to couples like that who have that kind of like power couple dynamic.
Here's what I will say. I think there's actually something really special there. And to an extent, there's a possibility that you don't need to decide which two you need to cut off. You might need to decide which one you need to cut off, and that might be harder. Here's why. I think I'm your archetype. Who are you making content for? Me. Goodness gracious, do I not want to love the Lord? Goodness gracious, do I want to build the kingdom for myself? Goodness gracious, is my sin full? And then when I see the gospel laid out in a way that makes sense to me, and as you've walked with me, I've wanted to honor the Lord. And that has placed so much for me being Dan the dad, even though I'm not a dad. But here's a fun thing, and this is just to encourage you.
You want to be a dad?
We ain't tackling that on the podcast. My wife and I. Ellie, help! So, but on a real note,
into some stuff. Let's go.
100%. So, something that might encourage you, though, your ability to teach me and be patient has led to my wife and I now running 2 different Asana boards for 3 different projects. And she's made 12 pieces of art for one thing, and she's never done that before in a week. And she's now managing all of Jimmy's track boards. And I taught her how to do it, and she's now running as an operator for me. And she's been managing Wrens, and she's been so excited about it. The guy Diego that you guys used for that one project, he is doing animations for her art, and then she's starting to manage it. And then we're talking about how to collaborate on the thumbnails for the YouTube video. And we've been doing this for about a month, and at first it was a little tough. It's actually gotten easier, and today we were able to sit down and say, I think we have a vision for a future where we run a company together. That was so cool.
Ooh.
Right? It was like, and it speaks to my heart.
That's really cool.
So as you're moving forward, you might want to choose one of these 2, but I think honestly, knowing this is presupposition, dude. This is not healthy for me to do, to cast a vision on you. I think you have a heart for the family. I think you do. And so I have a feeling you might alienate this other guy that you might like to emphasize these 2. And alienate is a strong word, but being willing to make content.
It's a strong word.
It's a strong word, but being willing
word.
To make content, not being scared to make content that one person will love, so that other people, in spite of the fact that other people are like, this isn't for me. This isn't for me. It is not trying to make those people upset, but it is being able to be creative enough to say, what does that person want? One of those examples for me was I really wanted to make content that non-believers could watch, that would be excited about. And as I stopped to think about that, this format came up because I was like, dude, I can pray. We can talk about the word. We can challenge each other as godly men. We can bring up the word, and I can't do that with non-believers. But to me, the non-believers need to build relationship with the believers and do content together for a whole new part of the marketplace. I don't know how to do that yet, but I do know how to engage and pray with this side first. Now, I think you're pretty close to knowing how to serve those other 2 people, but the person that you can do the best is Dan the dad. Here's where I think this is practical. Do you see why, first of all, does it make a little bit more sense why I was pressing and pushing?
The reason why I think about it more in terms of, it's not so much that I'm cutting any one of those guys out, that I would prioritize Dan the dad, and I think you're spot on with that. I would not look at it as cutting the other ones out, because I think that if I miss the fact that these are the types of motivations that sit within the this niche that I'm in, these are the characters that sit within this niche, it better helps me to understand when things kind of get stuck, because there's things that are going to serve Dan the dad way more if I bring up something that maybe I was thinking about Mommy Michaela, right? And so having that perspective, I think just at least gives me a view of the set. Like if I'm looking at it as a cast of characters and I'm looking at, all right, these are the characters that exist within this set, then, and the set being the niche, like this is the niche, right?
I did not mention this, and it made the rest of the conversation kind of silly. What is the intent of this for now, 3 months? And then also, how can you leverage every single tool that you have currently so that you can then use the other pieces later? We talk a little bit about characters, and then at the end of it, I think it really wraps it up by talking about supporting characters, but then also thinking about how can we make those supporting characters start to grow over time, but very quickly get attached to our main character for that beginning season. When you are building out a show, and I think you would agree, you have a main character and the supporting characters need to be valuable, but to a certain extent, they need to be viewed through the lens of the main character to support that main story. The desire I have to push back here is mainly rooted in what can we do to make it as easy as possible to make those next 38 video ideas. That is all this kind of thing is looking at. So, and honestly, I say these next 100 because these next 100 are what going to really make you an amazing content creator.
So when I have all these ideas that are in the course, right? And then when I take those and actually like convert them into true videos, right? The fast part is like taking it in its current course format. The hard part is, all right, well, now I want it to have a hook and I want it to have like some of the characteristics that like break it down into a nice, like easy to digest piece that feels cohesive. So my first draft on that always ends up, so I thought I was going to just talk about one topic, which to me was one topic, and it was partnering with an Etsy business owner so that you can essentially get a head start, right? You don't have to start from scratch. You can look at this a little different, and rather than thinking about, well, what product do I start? No, instead just think about like who can I partner with, because you don't have to come up with the idea all on your own. So the conversion process is like getting past the scary white page, which is immediately hit with like the content that I kind of got from the course, and then recognizing there's only so much time, attention, whatever on a platform like Instagram, and converting it into, well, what's gonna feel good as a good piece of Instagram content. So that's where the time is. It's just the skill of the conversion from straight lesson to like Instagram lesson.
Now, I want to talk about who you are and what you've done and what I think was cool about that experience. You are a Christian man. You are in the conservative circles. You are a complementarian. You are in a denomination that is cliché-ly labeled as sexist. Cliché-ly labeled as sexist. You are not sexist. You are ridiculously honoring of the women in your life, and that I know. You are a strong man, but still an honoring man. Those are characteristics that only you have, that nobody else does, that men need, that is unique. This will not be all of your content, but something that you did not mention in that journey was, and this is specifically speaking to men Christian entrepreneurs, is I submitted to a woman in a business adventure and I'm a complementarian. Here's what happened. Oh my God, I would stop scrolling. You know, and obviously that's messy, that's inaccurate. There's like different ways to do it. And again, start with the bad idea, refine it into truth, and refine it into something better. But if I was scrolling, I would stop and watch that. That didn't come from what you could serve. That came from your personal understanding of the experience.
So, okay. I see. So basically, the thought process is that, hey, maybe there's a hook that would find the right person. It would find that guy. It would find Dan the dad, right?
Yes.
And then a hook, like, so we already agreed that like the hook that in that one video that you're referencing, it's a good hook, but you're saying, well, but is it a specific hook?
It is. I think that hook was a specific hook. This is not a criticism of that idea. This is another video that you can record at the same time to increase your frequency that hits another part of your user journey. They need information. So let's, dude, I'm going to scroll back. I'm going to be real biblical here. All scripture is God-breathed to do what? Is it to just teach you how to do things? It's for teaching. It's also good for rebuke. It's also good for correcting. It's also good for training in righteousness. So a story, an experience has multiple facets. It is harder to go into those multiple facets when it's less specifically the person that you can connect with. We might not use that, but for the sake of this conversation, for getting something out of it, let's pretend it's the right idea. And forgive me for the moments where it's like, again, we're not going to use that idea.
Okay.
It might not be the right audience, but a better version of that speaks to the people that you want to. And some of those people might be on it. Like, so example, like just being 100% straight, I know 7 people that should watch your content that would watch that have a struggle of having godly relationships with women that aren't just like, I just need to control them and they're awful. But if they heard that, it would bring them on a user journey. I think something that is important to you is, what does it look like to be a godly man? Now, whatever the hook is, I started a business with a woman and I was married and it wasn't my wife. Here's how I honored the Lord. Now, again, exaggerative, blah, blah, blah.
There could be something there. Sure. Yeah. There could be something there. Yeah.
I want to scroll down to what are some of your favorite interests unrelated to money, content, film, and your current work. This is to emphasize that point. I'm going to list off what you put here. You said jujitsu. Your jujitsu content is bad A. Animation. That's news to me. I want to explore that. Theology. Extremely important to you. Controversial opinions, unique opinions. Will alienate some people. Will potentially alienate some people that just aren't your person. Decentralization could totally alienate people who are scared of that journey. I personally would avoid it, but maybe that's because I'm immature and am not the perfect person in your audience. You know, who knows? Tricking, flips. Some girl's gonna watch that and be like, here's another Alex Hormozy gym bro. I don't wanna watch that person. It's gonna alienate. It might even be the wife, it might. When I was looking at Alex Hormozy's content, some of his content was gym bro stuff. And then one of the guys at the bottom, Sean Saranto, one of his things was literally just him going around meal prepping and it was text on the screen.
Yep.
The only way he was able to leverage that.
Most of his stuff.
Yeah. Which I love that you put that.
Most of his stuff is that.
And the reason why I really want to push this, like, what is the easiest way for you to make 20 things, is you have a very interesting lifestyle that, for lack of better words, is hot. It is very like eye-catching. Like, and one of the things that you didn't list here, and I don't know if you're let me know if you're not comfortable talking about, and I'll hit it with the canopy.
Just say it.
Is the Weekend Warrior, bro. You not using that interest in your content pisses me off. But if those first 20 videos is you doing jujitsu and just getting beat up and talking about tension and stress as a man and trying to start a business, if that next one was about your theological struggles with the word, and your next one was about flipping, and then it was a bunch of clips and videos of you at Weekend Warrior, you need to have fun and be creative and not be scared of those things as a godly person. You will possibly alienate some people, but who you will probably connect with is Dan the Dad. The desire of this is you are going to do things wrong and you have the next, I'm asking that you have the next 2 years, most people won't, to fix it. But how do you, as quickly as you possibly can in the next week, make as much content as you possibly can that speaks to one specific person so that it has the most likely possibility of going viral? Because the people it gets showed to will like it because it does cut through more specifically to them. Does that idea feel clearer, or does it still feel a little bit like off the sidewall?
No. Yep. That makes perfect sense. Kind of the concept of like, you are your niche. You know? So let your interests like ebb and flow into your stuff. It's funny. I didn't, when you asked that question, I did not think about the Weekend Warrior stuff.
Dude,
for whatever reason, I think it's because it's like once a year that I'm showcasing that. But for Sheila, my wife, it is, year round. So,
dude,
and it's certainly a part of my life because of that year round.
It'll probably be the path that you connect into the second niche, which is you talking to your wife about how much fun Weekend Warrior is and how much you guys feel connected as entrepreneurs, believers, having fun together. And it will connect to people even who don't care about that in the female category, who are like, man, I want to connect with my husband. I should follow him. How are people going to connect with me based on my journey is more important. And it has to start with what is your journey. And because if you try to do outside of your journey, it's fine. You aren't Alex Hormozy, man. You aren't there. Now, okay, forgive me for being like harped on that. It's like I get that hop up energy, but like genuinely, you have not yet put in the hours to be able to make consistent, amazing content about entrepreneurship. Like, and I mean that lovingly. You are the best coach I've ever had as an entrepreneur. When it comes to content, you haven't put in 1,000 hours, so you will not have the creative energy to sustain 1,000 ideas. What I know you can sustain is 20 videos of you going on walks in the morning, 20 videos of you at jujitsu with captions on it, 20 videos of you cooking at home, 20 videos of you playing with Larkin being a dad, to your discretion and moral desire. 20 videos of you hanging out with the Huskies and saying, man, this is what dogs have done to my life. And then really saying, these are my people. This is what matters to me. This is what feeds me. And a part of that is for the next 2 months, man, you are not going to talk to the moms and you are not going to talk to the Etsy Ethans. You will eventually. And mind you, that's like, I'm using hyperbole to emphasize what's most important. You will probably make a video with your wife. You will probably make a video about your experience with Benita. Again, this is 2, this is 3. I actually think the mom one might be 2 because the Etsy experience was your least favorite experience. That's a presupposition. But your experience with your wife is something that's really important to you.
Yeah, 1000%. Yeah, I think like the types of content that Sean Sorrentos puts out definitely is relieving to see, because it's like, well, all right, like I'm just getting tons and tons of B-roll, and then I'm just taking the content that I've already written and just plugging it into that B-roll. Super like clean, easy. Yeah, there's a lot to that. And then in between, like I'm plugging in my like higher effort videos, right?
I know that these are things I haven't seen come out of you, but every time I do, I'm just like, I get excited. You know, this is what I see Arel getting lit up about. And that's why I was like, man, I want to challenge this. Like, what is the best chance that I can give Arel to over the next week? How do we make 30 pieces of content before Christmas, man? How do you and I do that? I know how if we can get to your heart. I don't know how if we try to be the best of everybody else. Now, here's a fun part. One of the things I have listed off in here, and we're going deep, this podcast is long, but I actually think it's really entertaining, so I feel like people might watch it. These are the kind of shorts I want, you know, because I'm like, dude, I feel like we're doing some cool work. Mind you, you might not. And if you don't, please let me know afterwards. On a real note, do you feel comfortable trying to push toward Dan and then find some practicals for this first one? Or does that still feel like you're forcing it? I don't have any interest in you appealing to the podcast for me. I really want to know for you, for these first 30, does it feel like, man, it makes sense, I want to try and push there, or does it still feel like we're trying to force something?
Pushing towards Dan doesn't make me necessarily like think about my content any different per se.
Yeah.
Maybe it's opening up like areas of my life that maybe I can like open up more into.
That's the hack, dude. That might not feel like as big of a hack as I think it is, if that makes sense. When I have talked to content creators, they have said that is the hack. What I have listed here, and this kind of leads into that, is a tool of research that I have been using for Jimmy, and it has massively improved my ability to make shorts for him and make different kinds of content. It's just visual research. Is I would go on and find the highest view per hour videos and the highest view videos and examine the thumbnail and examine the title. And it started to train my brain to more easily find hooks. The hook I gave you might not be the right one, but it was easy to find because I've just been examining them more. And then also noticing the hooks for the videos on TikToks and writing all of them down. These are quick, easy things that could possibly be done. One of them I put here was a camera one.
What does that look like with
short
view
form?
per hour? What does that mean?
So view per hour is determined how hot it is. Some of these videos are old, but they're still getting, let me find an older one, 5 months ago.
Oh, so these are new views per hour. They're getting
Yes.
this many new views per hour.
Because it like you can actually go on YouTube and you can change the thumbnail and the title and it will vastly increase its viewability on YouTube. Here are a bunch of videos that really do well that have the highest view count and are in the style that you like. Here is something that is going to be a hack for you to just get there immediately. Recreate every single one of these videos geared toward your person exactly. Then, and when I say exactly, I mean download the audio transcript, put the script in there, change the hook to be for believers, and then edit the body to be more for them. There's a space for this to not be done, but we're going to examine this potentially on another part. The reason why I think this is important is because right now you're trying to get your first 20 reps in so you don't suck. And if you make their stuff and do cover songs, you might have realized how your fingers can be held on the guitar in a different way. And you can quickly do 20 cover songs versus coming up with the next 20 ideas.
Yes, and setting a goal for how much time we can put towards just straight content. So like, let's say it is like 10 hours. And, I feel like that actually is doable. I think I could put in 10 hours towards content, especially since I haven't necessarily, I have started to use sections of my Saturday. So I blew through 4 reels, not this past Saturday. Not this past Saturday, but the Saturday before. Blew through 4 reels, and that was super, no, it was last Saturday. What am I talking about? It was last Saturday. I blew through 4 reels.
That was the first Vertical Depth podcast. For the 5 people that made it to the end with me, thank you so much. And if you're wondering what happened next, we are going to be working on the next couple of steps over this week. I'm actually recording the rest of the content today, and I'll be posting this podcast hopefully by the end of today or tomorrow. So I think it's going to be fun to see how this turns out. And it was fun and awesome to do this with somebody I trusted, because I got to watch through the whole podcast and see all the ways I did it really poorly, and see what lessons I can take into the next one. And I think it really started to reveal in my heart that I'm really eager for this idea to be clear, that there are some heart stuff that's going to make content easier, but I didn't build up the trust bank account. We had a really good call the next morning where I got to say, dude, I'm sorry. I screwed up in some ways. I watched this, I see where I was wrong. And he got to say, hey, I see where you're coming from in some of those areas after some rest. And then both of us, honestly, were grateful to have finished and eat some food. What we're doing next is we are taking all of the content that we wish we reviewed in that, and we're going to react to it, which is going to give him 15 pieces of content. Then he's going to take the information from those and apply it to his scripts to better make them more relevant and easier to write. And then he's going to pull some stuff out of his courses to apply some top of the funnel content. And then finally, he's going to prepare to recreate every single one of those 16 reels easily, simply, to practice the art of the cover song so that he's better at making content. I'm trying to do this some for myself and figure out what it actually looks like to serve the church in this season. So if you have ideas, if you see topics or see problems that you wish were addressed in the church, or if you work at a church or in faith circles and you want to get in the ring and work on your journey, I'd love to do that with you. So if you want to see that video, it's going to be put out hopefully by the beginning of next year. And if you enjoy this content, throw me a like and a subscribe, and help me figure out how to serve the church in a world that desires no depth but wants all vertical videos.